It's the Big Stuff Podcast. Now here's Andy and Jen, your Big Stuff hosts.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Stuff Podcast. Everybody, Jen and I, we headed down to Cape Cod, and we went to the town of Sandwich, and we went to the Heritage Museum down there, which is a beautiful spot. And we were chasing the David Rogers Big Bug exhibition that's going on there until...
It is through September 1st of 2025. We learned all about the big bugs at the Heritage Museum and Gardens, which is very lovely in Sandwich. And in our podcast, we're going to be talking to the artist himself. Now, David is from Long Island. He's self-taught, and he uses natural resources, natural materials from our communities to make these giant sculptures. Because after all, it is the Big Stuff Podcast.
That's what it's
We
all
like
about.
things that are big. You know that already.
So we got an interview with a couple of folks from Heritage, and then David after that. There's also surprise guests, many of them.
Wait till you hear this.
Cicadas. They are everywhere, and listen closely because they are all over this podcast.
David, we're hoping after you hear this and watch the podcast, you'll do a cicada series for your next big bug installment.
Great
but
idea.
right now, it's David Rogers Big Bugs. That's at the Heritage Museum and Gardens in Sandwich. Enjoy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Stuff Podcast. We are here in Cape Cod in Sandwich on the Cape, and we're going to see some humongous bugs today. It's David Rogers Big Bugs right here at the Heritage Museum in Sandwich. Jen, who do we have with us?
We're here with Jennifer Madden, Director of Collections and Exhibitions at the Heritage Museum and Gardens. What a beautiful day, Jennifer, here at the museum.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Oh, yes. I arranged that especially for you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And the cicadas, we hear them in the background as well.
Everyone be quiet.
Oh, that's really
they're chiming in.
cool.
Yeah. They're really putting on a show today for
They
you.
are. Well,
Yes.
it is the Big Bugs exhibit
Correct.
by David
Yes.
Rogers. But
Right.
before we get into the bugs, we want to find out a little bit. I love this museum. I come to the Cape every summer with my family. We've been here multiple times. Tell us about the museum and what makes it so special here at Heritage Museums.
Sure. We are a museums and gardens here on Cape Cod. As you mentioned, in Sandwich, we have over 100 acres of landscaped grounds here with beautiful gardens everywhere. And set into that garden, we have 3 different museum exhibition buildings. We have an antique automobile museum, a special exhibitions gallery, and an art museum that features a 1908 working carousel.
So there's also an exhibition going on about cranberries. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So Heritage tells local stories in our exhibitions from southeastern New England. And a huge part of that, of our economics, of our history, of our culture, is about cranberry farming. But before last year, the only cranberry items we had in our collection were 1 cranberry scoop and 2 horse bog shoes, when we should have had 4 horse bog shoes. So we are very fortunate. We worked with a collector who collected for 40 years, 3,000 items. We acquired his collection last year, and then we're able to plan this special exhibition all about the cranberry history.
Wow.
Do you have any questions about why they used a 2-legged horse instead of a 4-legged horse?
Right. Yes, that is an excellent question.
How did
Right.
that work? All right, we're here to see big bugs.
Right,
Let's
yes.
talk about them.
Right.
What do you got to say about David Rogers and his collection of bugs?
Okay, so David is an amazing artist. He has been traveling these bug sculptures for 30 years. We first had them here at Heritage in 2014, his original conception of 10 bug sculptures. People loved these sculptures. They remember them, and 11 years later, they were still asking me, when are you getting Big Bugs back? When is Big Bugs coming back? And as a museum curator, that's what you're aiming for,
yeah.
right? You're aiming for people to remember the exhibits that you did. It made a connection with them, and then they are still talking about it all those years later. That's a success as far as museum curation goes,
100%.
right? So a couple years ago when we booked the exhibit again, we were like, we know they're still asking us for it. They will absolutely welcome seeing these again.
Well, who is behind us? Because it's a giant praying mantis
It
I'm
is,
seeing.
yes.
Is that
Giant
one of the
praying mantis.
originals?
Yes, it is. Yes. So sometime in the last few years, he has added a pollinator series. So we were able to choose from his original, 5 of his original big bugs, and then also 5 of his pollinator series as well.
That's unbelievable. What do the bugs, the real bugs, think of these huge bugs?
As far as we can tell, the real bugs love these bugs.
Okay.
We recently saw some of the cicadas on the praying mantis.
Wow.
I'm sure they're on the other sculptures as well. So bugs on bugs is awesome.
How about the termites? They must love it.
Hopefully no termites. No termites
David
allowed.
does not want termites.
No
on
termites.
these. So, Jennifer, how long are the bugs here if people want to come out and see David Rogers' big bugs?
The bugs will be here until September 1st.
2025.
2025, correct.
Yes. So mark it on your calendar. If
Right.
you are vacationing this summer on the Cape, you need to come to Heritage Museum and Gardens and see David Rogers' big bugs. They really, really are cool. Hi, I'd like to welcome Lyric Lott to the Big Stuff podcast. Hi, Lyric.
Hi, how are you doing?
Welcome.
Doing great. You're the assistant curator of David Rogers' Big Bugs. And tell us a little bit about your role in bringing the bugs here to Sandwich.
Yeah, absolutely. So my job here is I manage the outdoor art, manage the big containers full of bug parts that come in when they get shipped here.
That sounds awesome, by the way.
It was very cool. Yeah, I helped David himself assembling the sculptures, figuring out the placement of where everything would go. It was really great to work with him and learn about the many different ways in which he harvests his materials. There is a butterfly that's currently in our visitor center that has plate fungi, which he harvested off of trees and then took basically like a giant, almost a book press, pressed all the fungi, dried them, and then assembled them to make the wing pattern to look like a monarch butterfly. But yeah, he uses a lot of different materials. This one behind us, I think, is black locust, which is also a wood that is invasive to this area. So it's a good opportunity to talk about different ways that artists can kind of interact with nature and use things that, are harming other plants while also calling attention to ecology and biodiversity and the insect world.
Fantastic.
They're whimsical, too. That's what I like about them. They're not scary bugs, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
They're very playful.
How do you feel about bugs in general? Are you a bug fan, or are you like scared of bugs or anything?
I am bug positive.
Bug positive.
I'm bug positive.
Excellent. I am too.
My daughter
That's
is
nice.
not bug positive. I don't understand why she's not bug positive. She wants to squish them, and I'm like, no, let them live.
Yeah. Do you ever have problems with kids that are just, they don't want to go anywhere near these things because they just are icked out?
Interestingly, no. Actually, I recently saw a few different kids under the praying mantis, which is behind us here, and they were admiring the sculpture itself and were really excited about it. And then they saw one of the cicadas on the ground. There's thousands of cicadas here right now on the Cape. And they were freaked out by the cicada. And so the parents were taking it as an opportunity to talk to them about insects and bugs. And I thought that was such a great moment that they were interacting with the art in that way and also with real bugs.
Sure.
That's great. What is your favorite one?
I would say it's probably the praying mantis.
The one we're in front
And
of.
do you know the statistic on it as far as the height and the weight?
I believe that it is, I want to say, 14 feet tall, and I think it's about 1,200 pounds as well.
I believe that defines big stuff.
Yes,
I
it
think
does.
that falls into the category.
Big bugs. Well, Lyric, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We're really excited to welcome the artist behind Big Bugs, David Rogers, to the Big Stuff podcast. Hi, welcome, David.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We have to say your art is just incredible. We saw all 10 pieces at the Heritage Museum and Gardens, and we were wowed by them all. They've got to be all like children to you. You can't pick out a favorite, can you?
The initial exhibit that I began creating in 1993 and debuted it in 1994 at the Dallas Arboretum. So I had 4 subjects. That was ants, praying mantis, dragonflies, and a spider in a web. So those 4 subjects, I think, could each individually tell the story or some of the story of the big bugs.
I have to say the daddy long legs, I absolutely loved. They're very whimsical, all of them, which I loved as well.
when I got to design them, I think in the back of my mind, I thought, well, I don't want them looking like 1950s B movies, with a
Right.
praying mantis that ate Cleveland and stuff. I wanted them to have yeah, something whimsical, a smiley face. Like the mantis is not doesn't look terribly aggressive. It is, if you look at the face, it almost has a smile, and a lot of things like that. I didn't want anyone to, especially children, to be frightened of any of the pieces.
I think that comes through, and I like the placement. You really put a lot of thought into where they were placed around the museum because you kind of turn a corner and you're like surprised.
Yeah, it's a great point to bring up because that was something. The sighting of the pieces is always what I like to say, a collaborative effort on the part of the garden and myself and my wife Terry as well. Uh, I the One of the advantages was that I had done the exhibit I think it's 10 or 11 years ago at Heritage, so I was very familiar with the garden, but they really came up with the final site planning was on their behalf, and you're right. I really like how do you hide a 20-foot tall praying mantis? It's pretty difficult.
It
You're
is.
right. You come down a sidewalk and it's on the map maybe, and he's like, "Well, where is it?" And then bam, you're standing in front of it. So I love when we can do that.
So we're here on Big Stuff Podcast. We're all about big stuff. And you're a great artist. What made you decide to go for a huge scale? And at what point was that in your art career?
I was working on these series of large branch sculptures depicting dinosaurs, and I really liked and they were all created on site. So I did a series of about five. I hadn't done a stick dinosaur in over 30 years, and what used to take me a month now takes 3 months. That's a factor,
Hmm,
age factor. But I love the scale of it. I love the idea of you start building this thing, and the body itself becomes this great armature. You're walking around on it along the backbone or the belly bone or whatever, and you're climbing around in it, and it brings to mind a lot of what I'd done in my childhood, which was I was always building something. My father always wanted to know on the weekend, Dave, do you know where my hammer is? And I'd be like, sorry, Dad. But it'd be hanging from two nails on a tree in the woods behind the house.
so
Uh,
you knew where it was.
I knew where it was, but I had to deny that I had actual knowledge of where its location was. I don't know why he didn't why he didn't buy me my own hammer, but
Hmm,
it's okay. I have several now.
Yes.
But I like the scale, and I think I was in House of Garden magazine in '91, and I was getting in those days, of course, being in a magazine like that was the big time.
Yeah.
It was really the exposure nationally and even internationally. I was getting letters. Again, I'm aging myself, and phone calls and messages, and a lot of different people were interested in what I was doing. The article was about I did a dragon at a Renaissance fair in upstate New York,
hmm,
and so a botanic garden from Dallas had approached me and wanted to know, well, we like the dinosaurs. What else you got? And I said, well, let me give that some thought. And to make a rather long story short, I thought, what if I made subjects from the I don't want to say arachnid, arthropod world, meaning spiders or insects, but make them on a scale the size of dinosaurs. What would that look like? And it was that was pretty much how I started out building the first exhibit. But I'd never
interesting.
That's
done
so
any.
cool.
Yeah.
David, talk about your materials that you used. We looked, each one of the big bugs has a really nice plaque in front of it that Lyric, who I know you worked with, did a lot of research to find out about. But, talk about some of the wood that you used. A lot of it's native to New England.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that came up in conversation as we were, talking about bringing the show back and the placement of the site planning, was to identify the trees that I use, because you're right, all of the trees, with the exception of the willows that I use for the spider web and for the bee skep, and the details on the dragonfly and damselfly wings, are a willow that I had begun harvesting in the mid 80s down in the Southlands, Virginia, North Carolina. And then the other trees, the black locust, red cedar, and black walnut, are all native trees to, of course, New England and where I am on Long Island.
It is nice that you honored New England's heritage.
Well, in the Northeast, for
Yeah, the
sure.
Northeast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole great story, even just about like you have a black locust variation called a shipmast locust, which until I got to Sandwich, I'd heard, I'd had tree companies and people that I knew that really knew their stuff referred to this shipmast locust, but everything, all the locusts down here is a very the branches are gnarly, and they make weird changes all over the length of the branch. But up there, I started seeing the ship mast, like trunks that were straight as arrows for 50 or 60 feet.
So you could actually, when you saw that, you could visualize how that would be used for you in the
Oh,
art.
the trees that I picked, I chose because I knew I wasn't going to be using any stains or paint or anything like that. So I wanted to choose trees that had something akin to maybe the color you may see that insect in real life.
Hmm.
So the locust was the obvious choice for the praying mantis. What I didn't know, I'd been using black locusts to work on the dinosaurs, but all the curved pieces for the ribs and for other parts where I needed nice changes to make the shapes of the belly, the neck, the eyebrow, the head, the jaw. Uh, so when I started carving black locust, it is like carving into heavy iron.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and the tree also it absorbs, because it grows in any kind of soil conditions. It absorbs silica up into the veins of the tree,
Hmm.
and then it sets into some of that heartwood. And the first time I was carving a piece of black locust, uh, I saw some sparks, and I thought it was possible that a nail or something like that had, the tree had grown around it, and I couldn't see it. And I kept digging around looking for where the metal was, and then I realized I was running into deposits of silica from the sandy soil that the tree had grown in.
Huh. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing, and you could even go up to my uh, praying mantis and find a place where there's some where you see the grain, the difference between where the rings of the tree are, and you could, if you look in the right kind of light, you see these little golden specks all in there, and that is the silica.
How do you originally imagine your next subject? How does it come to you? I mean, I'm sure it varies.
Well, really, the idea for the big bugs came to me like in a flash, like a bolt of lightning. And I was sitting in at this meeting, a big not-for-profit in some mansion in Connecticut, and I'd been invited to be, a guest presenter, and as usual, I was sitting in the back row, like when I was in school, not really listening and doodling.
Daydreaming.
Yeah, daydreaming, and I came up with the idea right there and then, and
Hmm.
made these. I just had one piece of paper, and I scratched out, these four really rough drawings of an ant and a praying mantis, and then a spider web, and it's just like instantaneous. So I was great and have been blessed with a great imagination and great visualization skills. So I would essentially see the pieces as a finished piece, and then kind of go back and deconstruct, like, okay, well, how big is the thorax in relationship to the abdomen? And if it's 20 feet tall or the log is 15 feet long, which it is, uh, and I would find very often illustrations or pictures in some children's books were really great. I could sit down with a Xerox machine and print out, something that's a relatively small illustration drawing, and then blow it up, and then okay, let's make 1 inch equal 2 feet, let's say. That
Gotcha.
was like one of the very simple
Yeah.
ways of, like getting into and then I had to trust the process. And this was, I think that every artist goes through this. There's a point where you're sort of in a gray area where you don't really know what the hell you're doing.
Don't tell anyone that, David.
Yeah, that's not what
Fake
we
it
want to
till
hear.
you make it.
David, you spend a lot of time with these bugs.
Yeah.
Do they have names?
The only one I ever named was the praying mantis. There was a woman at the Dallas Arboretum. Her name was Susan Wells, and she was the one that kept going to bat with the board.
You named it Susan, the praying mantis?
Susan, yes, I named it. I named it after her because I haven't named anything else after that. It's praying mantis 1, praying mantis 2.
Okay.
Actually, I retired Susan B. So now it's praying mantis 2, praying mantis 3.
David, this is the Big Stuff podcast. What is the largest sculpture that you have ever produced?
Well, that was the Stichosaurus.
Okay.
Terry and I finished at the end of last July. So it's the largest branch dinosaur I've ever created, and you can walk around in Pound Ridge. Well,
where is it? Because we might have to come see this thing.
We moved it from Kennett Square, PA, up the Jersey Turnpike, over the George Washington Bridge, up to this little town in Westchester County, Pound Ridge.
Pound Ridge. And how tall is that one?
15 feet. But
you know,
get inside them and walk around.
Well, David, it has been such a pleasure talking to you about big bugs. And like we said, they're just absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing episode.
Really good.
So much fun learning from David Rogers about his process and about making those gigantic, really awesome bugs for the Big Stuff podcast that we just discovered.
They're really whimsical and great. But I had never been to the Heritage Museum and Gardens before, and it was stunning.
It's
really
unbelievable.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I've been there many, many times. I'm just a car museum. We went in there. I know you wanted to spend a lot of time in there. They have the carousel. And then the gardens are just absolutely gorgeous.
Right.
What big bug sculpture was your favorite if you had to pick one?
Oh, I would say the spider in the web. I thought that was really cool just because it was sort of hanging.
That was
I
amazing.
like that one. What was your favorite?
I think definitely the Daddy Longleg.
All right.
Yeah, because he had kind of a bulbous, what do they call that? Middle?
Yes.
I don't know spider terms. Sorry. Abdomen. Yes. Thank you.
And they are running till September
1st.
2025.
Yes.
September 1st, 2025. So get on down to Sandwich, Mass.
And we want to mention it's at 67 Grove Street in Sandwich. And if you want to buy tickets and plan your visit, you can go online, heritagemuseumandgardens.org. So not a .com, a .org.
Sounds good.
Yeah, check it out. But thank you to everyone. Thank you to Jennifer. Thank you to Lyric. And especially thank you to David Rogers for telling us all about the big bugs.
It was really super. We'll see you again soon. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Get all of our episodes and field reports at BigStuffPodcast.com.